meeting each other, because something that you'll see is hopefully read throughout the presentation is that people are so important to this industry, and it doesn't matter if you work at competing agencies or competing partners, sales partners. People move around so much that you'll always need people you come across. So always be good to each other. The next person leaves their comments, it'll come back around. One thing on that is I've been at MediaVest now for a year and a half, and I'm the most veteran person on my team. So that means that I've seen 20 plus people come and go within that time period. So when I say people are important, it's because they're always moving around and there's always going to be opportunities. So you never know who's going to be a boss tomorrow, who you're going to need to lower their rates the next day. I also, so I'm just putting my timer on here. So when Anna Wintour was quasi-promoted to creative director of Condé Nast, this quote popped out to me because I think people get so caught up on the idea of technology and data and all these new opportunities and how do we leverage this new app and everything's moving so fast. But at the end of the day, it's not about that. It's always going to be about the people, because who's using the data, who's interpreting the data, who's applying it to their marketing campaigns, who's able to be the first beta partner on Instagram, leveraging their advertising. It's the people that are driving that. So who the heck am I? My name's Jordan. I'm a manager of strategy and activation on the Coca-Cola portfolio at MediaVest. So to break that down, because every time I explain this to my family, every holiday, and all my friends and strangers, they never really understand what I do. So manager. Typically on the agency side, there's assistant, planner, senior planner, manager, associate director, and director. About 5 to 7 roles typically. And I lay right in the middle of that. So managing up to my directors on what's going on and making sure all the planners and assistants are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Strategy and activation, this is a new thing for the Coke team at MediaVest. P&G is already doing it and doing it very successfully. And you'll see that different agencies do it different ways. So I currently work on Coke, but I used to work on NBC cables like Bravo, Sci-Fi, USA. I also worked on Clinique. And sometimes agencies just have strategy teams. Sometimes they just have activation teams. And sometimes they have 2 separate teams in-house. We were like that, where we had 2 separate teams in-house, so I would work with my counterparts who were developing the strategy. They would pass it off to me, and I actually do the buying and the implementation. We've, since the summer have merged roles, so now I'm handling both the strategy and the activation, which is really fun. And then MediaVest, if you're not familiar, MediaVest falls under Starcom, which falls under Publicis. Publicis and Omnicom are 2 of the largest agencies in the world. We tried to merge, and that did not happen, which is good because Omnicom has Pepsi and Coke. So, all right. So I was born and raised in South Pennsylvania, middle of nowhere, so kind of like. I've never been here before, but I loved it because I haven't seen grass in a really long time. I went to GW in DC, and I always wanted to be in New York. So right after graduation, I showed up in New York, and I was like, who's going to give me a job? So growing up and even at GW, I always loved politics and news, and I wanted to be a press secretary. I thought that was the coolest thing to do. Turns out I ended up working in celebrity lifestyle PR when I first moved to the city. And as glamorous as it sounds, it was a nightmare. But it's definitely helped me get to where I am today. So, that part of the job, it wasn't necessarily people, but it was the experience I was getting that really helped me learn a lot of tools that you need to have when handling strategy and activation. And now I'm in digital advertising, and now I'm turning back. So it's great to hear TPL say that they're prioritizing digital and social, because I don't want to reveal too much of the Coke team's secret sauce, but digital-centric people are who we're trying to hire. So even if you're going to be on the publishing team or the TV team, by the way, the publishing team is now really just the people that handle Condé, Meredith, and Hearst, but they're not just buying print anymore. They have to be prepared to buy print and the digital extensions of that. When we talk about TV, we're no longer saying the word TV, we say video, because it's not just NBC watching it on your TV, it's also NBC.com. So we've actually moved forward with a video neutral strategy. So when we propose video to the client, it's a mix of .coms and broadcast. And it's fun actually, so I shouldn't go that fast. It's been fun because in our latest meetings yesterday, we were talking about who's going to buy that. Is it me, the typically digital person, or is it the TV person? Because when you're buying TV, you're guaranteeing weekly GRPs or TRPs. It's weekly goals, essentially. But what that means for me, from a digital standpoint, is that who's going to be pulling that reporting every single week to make sure when we buy video on Pandora or CBS.com, we're actually delivering it. I personally don't want to be the person to do that, but that's what we're figuring out. So, you guys are going to be meeting with a bunch of agencies. I have to tell you, get the feel, talk to as many people as you can. There's going to be massive agencies like MediaVest, and then there's small places like my first agency, Neidig. When I started, I was the sixth person. We handled all of NBC Universal Cable. So that's about 7 networks, ranging from like E, Bravo, USA, stuff I mentioned before. When I left, I was working on Clinique, and by that time there was still only 10 people covering all those accounts. Flash forward to MediaVest and Coke, I mean my Coke team alone is 80 people. So it just puts in perspective not only the amount of dollars they're spending, but the work they're putting out. When it was little old me, literally by myself doing the strategy and activation for Clinique, I mean obviously when I'm like 24 years old and I've never really done strategy before, yeah, it's fun to talk about targeting only people during prime time. I only want to buy on Twitter during prime time because that's when my TV is going to be happening. I thought it was a smart strategy at the time, but then coming on Coke, you realize that there's so many more things you can do. Being at a large agency also, that gives you the power to leverage all these special partnerships you don't realize that you have, working with Google or Axiom, different data providers, or big media partners like Facebook or even Instagram that lets you get in the door first before any other advertiser. It also means that your work's going to hit trades before other people. So what I actually do, I'm going to try and break it down into 4 easy steps. And I'm not sure how much you guys know or don't know, so bear with me if I'm being annoying. If there's something that you're not sure what I'm saying, I'm not making sense, just let me know. So first and foremost, we start with client goals. What are the business objectives? Do they want to increase revenue? Do they want to drive sales? Do they want to just, maintain brand awareness? If you're a Coke Red, you're just maintaining your name out in the marketplace. That's all it is. But if you're a salon brand like Fruit Water, which I'm sure none of you know about because that was my biggest challenge this year, you really just want people to know what your product is and how to drink it. There's also other goals about, more frivolous things like, if you have to drive to Publix or something, if you have certain relationships with Walmart or Target, we want to prioritize one of them over the other. From there, we move into the strategy and architecture phase. This is when we start to craft, who is our actual consumer? We really, Coke Plus portfolio has about 40 plus brands. I think people realize that they own Smart Water, Vitamin Water, Sprite, Fanta, Mellow Yellow, all these beverages. You're all fighting for the same places usually. So you want to be very specific in who your target is, so you're not fighting over each other and cannibalizing your buys. From the strategy and architecture, this is more I call it the free food stuff. It's the fun things, but it's really just kind of making it up as you go and trying to do as much research as you can that's recent. The best way to compare it is when you guys are writing papers, you're citing sources that could be years or decades old. I have to cite things that are within the past 3 to 6 months because the marketplace is completely different. Think about when Vine or Snapchat came out, that wasn't that long ago. Next year there's going to be something completely new. So if we're talking about, what's the most popular app among millennials, well, as of last week, Adweek says it's Instagram. In 6 months, it's going to be completely different. From there, this is where I was born and raised in advertising in the negotiation and buying phase. So this is when we actually go out to the marketplace. Okay, we want to buy streaming audio. We want to be in Pandora, Spotify. How do you choose who you're going to buy, what you're going to buy? And negotiating is fun. That's the fun part because it's not like you're just walking into a mall and that shirt's $20. It's going to be $20. You can actually say, okay, how about we make it 15, and I'll guarantee you that 3 of my friends are going to come next week, or I'll throw in some extra research or something like that. So you can really get really crafty with it. Finally, the campaign implementation and measurement and insight. This, to me, is the most important part. This is what your clients are coming to you for. Think of yourself as being a consultant when you're on the agency. I am such a little sliver in my brand manager's day that they just want me to tell them what I'm seeing and why I'm seeing it and make sense of it for them. And then they're probably just going to regurgitate it to their bosses. So my job is really just to have an opinion and have a personality and be able to sell whatever it is I'm trying to say, whether or not it makes sense. Oh, and then finally, we just want to drive sales ultimately. So, okay. So for the first step, if you're looking at if you're just increasing sales and a lot of these things, because I don't want to just focus on one product or one campaign I've done. I try to blend them together because I've worked on entertainment, beauty, and CPG, beverage. If we think about driving sales among women 25 to 49 who have kids, additional demo variables, it could have HHI of 75K plus, interest in music, at-home entertaining, and affordable style. These are all things that we'll look at when we define our true target. And one of the things that MediaVest puts out is a consumer portrait that we craft for the brand. So we're the ones who actually tell them who their consumer is for Diet Coke or Fanta or something. And then sometimes these come from the client in terms of goals, sometimes it comes from us. They'll say, you want to maintain a certain reach level for 4 months, summer timing, and maybe focus on, tentpole holidays. This is when we start to move into the phase of okay, now we know who we want to go after. What are we actually going to do? What's our main thread throughout everything? One thing I forgot to say about social is one thing we always say, no matter what the campaign is, no matter what the objectives are, the goals, is that it should always be social at the heart. No matter if it's a teen or if it's a mom, social at the heart is something that my president drills into our brains. They always want whatever the work you're putting out, even if it's just a print ad or a video ad, be something that's going to inspire people to talk about it, whether in person or on social networks. So it's cool that you guys are focusing on that. So we're going to create a framework for the flight. So we know that this demo target likes entertaining, at home and affordable. So it kind of leads me to believe that she's going to be the person who's actually hosting all these parties. She likes having people over. It's not going to be a huge blowout. She's not going to rent out a venue, but she's going to have a barbecue and hopefully cook all the food and buy all the drinks and buy all the Coke products. So we're going to craft a strategic statement. So this is an example of one that we want to infuse random acts of party in everyday life, providing inspiring content and helpful tips that people are actively planning around these events. What does that actually mean? Sometimes I get annoyed that these statements are you walk away saying, there's a lot of great words in there, but what does it mean? So looking at it from a digital lens, we just want to surround all of these areas where people are planning for parties, whether it's eBite or they're just looking at foodnetwork.com, recipes. We want to try and infuse ourselves into these platforms or provide them with content that's going to give them some inspiration or ideas for it. The negotiating and buying phase, like I said, is my most favorite part. So I say sometimes, and I really mean a lot of times, because we're so large, it's not just Coke, we also have Walmart, Procter & Gamble, Samsung. We have a lot of rate cards with the big guys. So Millennial, Google, Facebook, Twitter, the pricing is going to be the same. Sometimes we get additional bells and whistles with that, but it's the smaller guys, a lot of the startups that you can be so much more flexible with. Recently, one of the coolest things I did, I negotiated a branding study for our entire campaign from our largest video partner. So someone like YouTube may not be as flexible with that, but some of the smaller guys like Uni or Tremor or Brightwell, when I say smaller, I mean they're not as big as a YouTube in the sense of corporate-y. They're more flexible, things like that. So they're willing to just kind of check for tens of thousands of dollars. And like I said before, it's not just shopping in a mall. You really have the power here and the leverage to get what you want out of it. And this is where you're showing your value to the client. You want it, even though it's monopoly money, I'm playing with millions of dollars. You have to remember that you have to show your value to the client because they can leave my agency in a second and go anywhere else. There's 20 better agencies. There's always going to be better people going there. So you always have to show that you're worth something to them on a personal level. It's not just the Coke team. My friends will literally say I don't think Jordan's working for this. That's where you have to really be your truest self. And then from there, we just issue the contracts and lock in all the legal paperwork. One of the fun things that's been popping up lately is that everyone wants custom content. No one wants like just standard buying video or buying banner ads that you're never going to click on. Everyone wants something custom. Well, we have a client in code. It's not that simple. There's a lot of legal red tape. You're talking about bringing in talent. It's just recording an audio spot or having a teenager film a 6-second video or whatever it is. It requires a lot of additional work that you're probably not in classes for, and I certainly wasn't in class for, but now I'm having to go through red line documents that come from some of these huge partners, and I have to look at them before my legal team does. Finally, the fun part is the campaign implementation. So after you've sold in your strategy, you purchase everything, everybody's happy, you spend millions of dollars, now you have to all make sure it happens. And the best part is when it's either print or TV. TV, okay, you got this 30-second spot, you just pass it off, done. You get the print ad, piece of paper, done. Digital, oh gosh, no two websites are like. Every creative piece is completely different. And with that means it's going to break. The Twitter clicks out to Facebook, or is it Android versus iOS? Is it their app that has a bug in it this quarter or something like that? Clients are well aware that in digital space you have to be much more nimble with all these hiccups that are going to happen, but it's how you handle those hiccups when they do happen. Are you negotiating makers? Are you making sure it doesn't even come to the client because you're fixing it before it gets to them? These are a lot of the challenges that I face all the time, and that's just with the marketplace. Now you throw in the mix working with PR agencies, social agencies, creative agencies. If you're the AOR, you're now having to steward all of those partners in the right direction and make sure you have an understanding of all of it. And depending on the brands, you might have 2 PR agencies, 2 social agencies, 3 creative agencies, one that does the video, one that does the social, one that does the display, and then social, one that just does Facebook and Twitter, and then one that does everything else. And then PR, one that does crisis management, and then one that does just all the fun stuff. So wrapping your head around working with all those people and making sure that you're leading it